This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.
It would help if I remove my little cartoon character. How is everybody? Yes, it's me, Bigfoot Michiganrob. BMR in the house. It's Saturday afternoon. Hello, Mark Z. Hammer, Celia, Diane, Tyler, Andres, David. Yeah, this is a little bonus, a little special edition show. It's really not that special. It's not really a bonus. Typically, I do these encounters on Friday nights between like 6 or 6:30 whenever I get home Friday. And as you all know, it is kind of Easter weekend, and Friday night I had right around 6 o'clock, 5 or 6, I met with the family. We did our traditional fish dinner at a local restaurant. So we all gathered up. and we were there, and so yeah, I knew that it would be impossible for me to do a show Friday because I didn't want to schedule it for later because, of course, the Blondes and the Booze are on at 8 o'clock, and my other friend comes on after that for their show over there on PRT, Josh. So I was like, well, Friday, I'm just not going to do a show. So I said, I was sitting around today and I had a couple of these encounters to do for you guys. I said, you know what? It'd be pretty cool to just do one on Saturday because tonight after this show, I got another family engagement to take care of. And then I got to get back home because, excuse me, tonight, of course, I got my 11 o'clock show every Saturday night at 11. It's myself, Krista, Brandy, and Monica. We do a late night and we do some bizarre into the bizarre, that show. So check that out tonight. So I said, yeah, but I still want to get this in. I got nothing going on until a little later. So yeah. So for those of you that do celebrate Easter, I want to wish you a happy Easter coming up tomorrow. Again, I'll be doing the family thing. You know, whenever the holidays roll around, it always messes up the show schedules, but that's okay, right? That's what it's all about. Friends, family, celebrating whatever your beliefs are. And so, yeah, we do that every year. So I want to thank you all for coming in and joining me. MK Ultra, Denise, a bunch of you are coming in. I don't expect too many of you as this is unscheduled, but that's okay. There's always the replay. And I'm going to get started with this. And I must tell you guys, I was reluctant to do this first encounter. It's about a dogman. It's in Wexford, Michigan. And this happened last June. And when I was reading this email from this person, again, as I stated, I was kind of reluctant to do this only because it's sad. In the spirit of Easter, certainly not appropriate for Easter. And I really didn't want to do it because I'm forewarning everybody. And for you folks that watch the replay, it is sad. I happen to love animals, and this takes place. And this guy even tells me early on he had a hard time typing this. But then after I read through it, I said, yeah, I'm not going to do this show. I'm not going to do this guy's story. But then in the email he sent me, he said, Rob, when I heard about your Bigfoot encounter and how you needed to tell it because it was therapy for you, despite how tragic his event that he experienced was, he said, I think you're right. And I just wanted to share this, and hopefully you share it for me. So when I read that, I kind of changed my tune a little bit. And there's two things about this is, yeah, it took place in Wexford where I had my encounter in Wexford. And when the guy said I wanted it told because you don't turn away a lot of the stories you get because people want to be heard and I want to be heard, he says. So I'm doing this for this guy despite my cringe because this is not a very uplifting story to start the show. I'm just being honest with everybody. But I'm going to go ahead and do it because I was asked to do it. And that's just the way I roll. I don't discriminate or judge. I roll on with it. So just brace yourselves a little bit because it is sad. And then the second one that I'm going to do isn't sad at all, but it's very creepy. It's very it's different. It's something that I've never done before on a live show anyways. And so when that comes up, you'll get my gist of that. So thank you for coming on in. Don't forget, if you're new here, to please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube, Texas Front Porch, of course. Hey, Brown Dwarf, how you doing, brother? Monica Rollins, Our Paranormal World. Donnie Cho says stuff. He's on tonight. He's got a show tonight that's is certainly going to be NC-17 and Paranormal Paul. The super chat's open. Great way to support what we do around here. Thank you for that. You can become BMR Pirates, mateys. Join today. Join the many. Join the few. It depends on your point of view. Thank you for that in advance. Don't forget, of course, our conference is coming up September 19th and 20th in Richmond, Missouri. So I'm going to get started with this ever so sad story. Hello, Mr. Castro. Great to see you, my friend. Mateys. Again, if you're new, please subscribe. So I'm going to start with this. And this actually, as I said earlier, took place in June of last summer, you guys. And I'm going to go on. This guy says, "Hey, Rob. Hi, my name is Larry, and I live in, of course, Wexford County, Michigan. As you know, Michigan is a state with many recorded sightings of Dogman, particularly in Wexford County, Michigan. And to be honest, as he goes on to tell me, I've never believed in such a wild or crazy idea. Actually, I am skeptical of the existence of Bigfoot, let alone the Dogman phenomena. I do watch your channel, and I watch a couple of your other friends that you have, and I love you guys. You do a fantastic job. I must say that I've come around to your guys' way of thinking." And then he goes on. "This past summer, last June, I do believe a dog man has been visiting my property. And I believe it was responsible for the disappearance and eventual death of my German Shepherd named Rex." So you already know where this is going, as I mentioned earlier. Very sad. And when I think back on this, it's a story that should be told because I don't trust anything in the woods. Nothing. I do not. He goes on to tell me, "Rob, it's even taken me a while to type this. The simple fact that I'm putting this on an email brings tears to my eyes. In fact, Rob, I had to restart this email several times. I do love that on your shows that you promote talking or writing about trauma. It's good therapy, as you've always said. I hope this proves to be the case for me. And I can tell right off the bat, you guys, that this guy is a subscriber and does follow the show, because most of you that have followed me for some period of time, it's kind of what I always say. I mean, not every day, not every show, but those that have been a member or a channel subscriber, you guys know what I'm all about. And that's why I decided, to further on with this. He says it was early of last year in June, when I started to notice huge tracks on my 2-acre property in Wexford. These tracks I first noticed at the outer edge of the tree line that separates my home from the depths of the woods. When I say tracks, these tracks were huge, oversized, dog-like tracks. Or at least this is what I had thought. I made this comparison to my dog Rex's tracks. I noticed that Rex's tracks had the pad in the middle of the foot with his 4 digits. That would be his toes, right? Now, these newer prints were at least double in size, just as a starter, Rob. Rex's prints were maybe a bit over 3 inches long, maybe 2.5 inches wide at best, at the largest. And again, I'm just kind of speculating to you. So he says, right? Keep in mind, Rob, that I never actually measured his footprints. This is just like my guesstimation. Now, being that these new tracks that I discovered not only doubled in size of Rex's, but many of the prints did not have four digits, but 5 or 6 that surrounded the footpad. I found this odd. I racked my brain to find pictures of this, and I could not. Also, unlike the tracks that Rex laid, these tracks were sets that seemed to have no pattern. They picked up, then they disappeared. They started up somewhere else on the property. Also, Rob, I'm not an experienced tracker. The patterns, they seem actually bipedal. I didn't see a set of 4 tracks like you commonly would see, again, like my dog Rex ran or laid on the grounds on my property. After a few weeks, these tracks got closer to my home. He goes on to say that Rex started to get nervous. He acted oddly and differently. Typically, Rex would run about the property for hours. But the last few weeks in June, Rex would only go outside to relieve himself and nothing more. Rob, he says, now if I were to be outside and play with him, he would stay a bit longer. But I had always noticed that he, unlike before, had started to gaze into the tree line. Sure, Rex had done this before, but the past few weeks it was just different. And it was very odd. Not to sound cliche, he says to me, I got the feeling that Rex sensed something was watching him. So this guy, his dog, he gets this odd feeling that his dog is extremely nervous now during this time period. And his German Shepherd Rex, the writer says, the guy that sent this to me says he thinks that he sensed that Rex thought he was being looked upon. It was a late night as he goes on with his encounter story. He says it was a late night. The wind was howling. And again, this guy could feel something wrong with Rex. He thought perhaps he would let him outside one last time before bed. He waits on his porch for him as he went out for his dog to go out and relieve himself, call it a night. So as he leaves Rex outside, this guy, his name's Jim, by the way, he says that his cell phone rang from inside the house. So he quickly turned inside to get to his phone. He says, Rob, it's not even 20 seconds when I returned to the porch that Rex was gone. I started to yell at his name. There was no response. I went back to get a flashlight to go look for him. Lo and behold, Rob, he goes on to tell me, those oversized 6-digit tracks were in the area where Rex was last seen by himself when he went back into the house to get his cell phone to answer it. Hello, Daryl, Squatch Girls. And then as he's outside, he says to me, he says, hey, everybody listening, I could see his smaller tracks, Rex's tracks, which he distinguished, were surrounded by the oversized tracks. And at one point, Rex's tracks stopped. They disappeared. The other much larger tracks were still very apparent, and they started prancing off into the tree line. Then those tracks as well, the much bigger tracks, stopped. Again, like they completely vanished. Jim says a pit in the bottom of his stomach turned over. And he surely had a sense of terror. He had a sense of terror for his dog. It overtook him. He went searching all night long for his dog, calling out for him, to no avail. 2 weeks, excuse me, everybody, 2 weeks went by, and still there was no sight or sound of Rex. He hadn't found him. Jim says one day Rob upon coming home from work, his nightmare had just gotten worse. At the doorstep of his house, when he got home from work, he looks down on his property, and he knew what had to be a limb from Rex's body was laying on his back doorstep. And yep, those oversized 6-digit prints also surrounded the outside of his home. One of those prints was firmly implanted right by Rex's limb outside the doorstep. What evil can do this, Jim asked me, Rob. What evil could do this? I lost my dog, Rex. Was this the alleged Dogman of Wexford County, Michigan that everybody talks about? There sure is something wicked and evil that lurks in Wexford County, Michigan. And he simply ends it by, thanks, Rob, for your platform. Signed, Jim. Hey, little Patty. Yeah, I can understand why that was short and brief and descript. And again, I was reluctant to do that because, let's face it, we all have pets. We hate to hear stories like this. I wasn't going to really do that one. I mean, it wasn't very graphic, but we know something happened. And I must tell you, when you listen in on that, that was not another predator. I mean, Wexford, Michigan doesn't have wolves. It wasn't a bear. It was basically what I believe is a Dogman, and I do believe they exist. I think most of you in the chat room know or think that a Dogman exists. And this poor guy, his poor fellow, his companion, and he goes on to tell me later that he lives by himself. It was just his partner, his friend. Now he had suffered this terrible, terrible tragedy. So what a great way to start Saturday, right, everybody? Easter weekend with a sad tale of woe from this guy, Jim. So, Jim, happy Easter. Thank you for sending that in. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michiganrob on YouTube. This next one, you guys, it's going to blow your mind away. We all hear about, when we talk cryptids, when we talk about Dogman, everybody, we've heard about Dogman, the upright canine or canid. We heard about Dogmen coming in and out of portals. Perhaps they're in different realms, different realities. Some suggest alien. Some suggest flesh and beast. Some say it's the hounds of hell, the disciple of Satan. This one here has a very different spin to it. And I thought this was very compelling, which is why I'm going to share it with you guys. Hello to everybody for coming out in the chat. Please hit that like button. Leave a comment afterwards. So I'm going to move on with this. This guy, the story that I got from the man's name, calls himself Bradley. And Bradley was telling me this crazy experience that he had back in 2019 about a wolf pack that seemed to settle just outside of his home in Minnesota. They appeared to be gray wolves at first, as he says early on. But then he says, Rob, these wolves were not natural. Not natural at all. These creatures, in fact, did not even seem to be from our world. He does briefly say that he's had a gray wolf pack running about his property. Thought it was odd, but nothing really there was nothing extraordinary, as I guess these parts of where he lives, the gray wolves are active. But these are a bit different, as you'll find out here in a little bit. He goes on to tell me about this encounter, and he goes, hey, Rob, before I get into this encounter, I've got to tell you about this wolf pack of creatures. He has to go back. Before he gets on with the encounter, he says, Rob, I have to go back 2 months prior to this experience that I had. It was a very eerie and creepy experience. So Bradley goes on to tell me that he lives in the northwest section of Minnesota, where Lake Superior serves as a border to his actual location. Hey, Danny Staten. Hey, Walter. So again, lives in Minnesota. Lake Superior is in the about 5-10 miles to his north. He says, Rob, I don't live off the lake, but perhaps I live 5 or so miles away. Often he takes his boat in the spring to fish and do some camping with his wife, Susan, and his son, Brad Jr. Bradley says that his neighbors keep asking him about strange lights or craft in the sky by his house and in the surrounding neighborhood. And his neighbors, one particular neighbor named Ron, says this craft, unlike planes or helicopters. So, again, his neighbors are asking him if he's seen any of these strange lights, these strange craft on his property, as all of those neighbors have. And this guy, Bradley, says he has not. Bradley goes on to tell his neighbors that, yeah, he's familiar with the stories of Minnesota and about all the UFO activity apparently in Minnesota, as well as some cryptid activity, primarily with Bigfoot. He goes on to say that, yeah, he does, he says, hey, Rob, man, I occasionally watch some shows on television, listen in on some podcasts. And he says, Rob, I'm not sure what I really believe in. I'm more of a skeptic when it comes to all of this phenomenon. He says, now I'm not totally closed-minded to the paranormal or the paranormal phenomena, but he says, Rob, I'm going to leave it just at that. So after talking to a few of his neighbors, he decides to pay more attention to the sky and more closely to the north, where Lake Superior borders the property within this 5-mile range. So this Bradley becomes very observant to all of this. And for a few weeks, he saw nothing odd at all. In fact, he went over to his closest neighbor's house, which again is Ron, one of his neighbors, and asked him if he had seen anything unusual of late, since Ron and the other neighbors brought it up to this Bradley. So Ron told him not really, he hasn't seen anything, but to always pay attention, as he would most likely see something strange eventually. Hello, Sassy Debbie. Bradley says several more weeks went by and nothing came up. Nothing until in the early morning and in late April of 2019 when he finally had a very odd and eerie experience and a sighting. He goes on to tell me it was just before sunrise. And as Bradley looked out towards the northern sky, is when he saw an almost bronze, metallic covered object glowing in the far distance. So at first, he could not make out a shape because of the exact distance of this object. Then he noticed the object getting closer to his home. When a shape of a saucer like object very distinctly came into focus. So he says, Rob, he goes on to tell me that this definitely reminded him of a UFO. And he's seen plenty of UFOs and images on the internet, in the movies, so on and so forth. Bradley says and explains to me that the craft now seems to be several hundred yards away and was hovering over a field in the back of his home and the surrounding neighborhood. Rob, the craft just kind of fluttered, and it was only going to be a matter of a few minutes before the sun rose, as he could see the sun just starting to rise in the horizon. Then a bright white light shone or shined down from the bottom of the craft and panned out in a conical formation, lighting up a huge section of the field. Then the craft, almost wanting to avoid the full sunrise, in a matter of seconds, it shot up into the sky as the sun finally broke the plane of the horizon. So this guy, Bradley, goes on to say that even much weirder and creepier is that for a brief moment, the bright light cast down from the craft temporarily blinded him. Then, when he got his vision back, he looked towards the field, and again, the distance, several hundred yards away or out. He says, Rob, I believe that I saw a pack of animals, almost wolf like animals, running back into the woods behind the field. Hello, Dragon Paw. Hello to everybody for coming on in. If you're new, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Happy Easter coming up on Sunday. An impromptu Saturday show because I missed Friday. So he sees these creatures. Apparently they're wolves. He's thinking, again, it's several hundred yards away, but that's the impression this guy, Bradley, got. He felt that it was odd. And then he would find out later, as he tells me, that these were no ordinary animals of the forest, let alone anything from our realm or our reality. He goes on to say, Rob, it was less than 5 minutes, and his neighbor Ron came rushing over. And Ron shouts out to Bradley, did you see that? So Bradley says, hell yeah, I did. That was incredible. So these two guys, after a few minutes of babbling on, pulled themselves together a little bit and went on about now what they really think that they saw. Soon thereafter, both the wives of Ron and Bradley came outside, and a few other neighbors all gathered at Bradley's house, and they're all awestruck about what they all witnessed. Hello, Val. Bradley goes on to say collectively that the group all experienced this exact same thing. They all experienced the craft, the beam of light, and also every single person made mention of going blinded. And yes, they in fact also saw this pack of animals during this episode, this experience, run back into the forest. They couldn't quite figure out what the animals were or what they think they saw, but found it odd, much like Bradley. So after a few hours about talking about this strange event, the group of neighbors then decide to contact the news. They called up their local TV. They scouted about the community and asked others if they saw what they all had witnessed. It seemed, however, that only Bradley, Ron, and the other neighbors that witnessed this, which was 3 other couples, by the way. So there was 3 couples, that's 6. Brad and his wife is 8, and Ron and his wife. So that's 10 people, all neighbors, all married couples. They all witnessed this. But as they went into the community, they were the only people that saw this. So upon their reporting this to the local news, television or whatever, to their dismay, you guys, to all of these people, no media, nothing about this was aired or spoken about on the local networks. It was pretty much just ignored and deemed not newsworthy, as one reporter did reach back to this Ron, Bradley's neighbor, said, that's not newsworthy, this, that, and the other. You were just imagining things. Okay. So, needless to say, he goes, Rob, we were all very disappointed, to say the absolute least. Hey, Pancho. Daryl Stanley, how you doing? Jason Finch, what's up, Fincher? Thanks to everybody for coming in. So anyway, yeah, they're all disappointed. You know, they report this. There's 10 people. They see this. Nobody else in the community saw it. They report it into the local TV, the news. They blow it off. Not newsworthy. You know, whatever. And we all get that. This happens more times than often, right? So now he says, Rob, I'm going to have to fast forward from April, okay, to an evening in the middle of June. Bradley goes on to tell me that this was an extremely strange day. It had been about 2 months from the prior experience, and Bradley's neighbor Ron and his wife paid them a visit. Bradley and his wife Susan were out back starting a fire when Ron and his wife, the neighbors, they walked on over. Upon getting there, they spoke the usual small talk. When all of a sudden, the other set of the 3 other neighbors that experienced the same thing, they sauntered on over. Now it's Bradley and his wife, Susan, Ron and his wife, Ellen, along with the other 3 married couples. So all 10 of these folks are all back together again. After a couple months, after witnessing the light, the wolves, the flying saucer, if you will. Okay. So after a few minutes into their conversation, Bradley mentioned that it was kind of odd that everybody kind of showed up unplanned and unannounced. They all show up at this Bradley guy's house. Bradley goes on to say that in the 8 years he lived there, this sort of gathering never ever took place. In fact, these neighbors hardly ever talked to each other. except for the gathering back in April when they had the first encounter or experience. Bradley goes on to tell me that the entire group, all kind of in unison, spoke out that they felt that they were oddly drawn over Brad's house. One of the group members said that it was almost like a little voice inside their head whispered into their ear to gather. Upon this and hearing this, the gathering of the people, all these 10 people now they all get like very quiet. They grew silent. They don't say anything. Then they all admitted, every single one of them admitted that they also heard this very little whisper in their ear to gather, to go down to Brad's house, Bradley's house, as he says his name is. Bradley and Susan. Hey, Dragon Paul. Hello, Joanne. Hello to everybody. Barbara. Hello, Barbara. So these people all is kind of crazy. So we're talking about these people had this experience in April, though there are only 10 people that have this experience. They really don't speak to each other in the 8 years. I mean, they're friendly, but they don't get together. You know, then all of a sudden they all get this little whisper in their ear as they suggest, and they all kind of just unannounced, not planned, they all kind of come upon each other, and they go to Bradley's house, all the same experiencers. As they further spoke about the little whisper, they all kind of agreed together that in some strange way they kind of felt a little bit violated. And of course, frankly, they're also a little bit scared. Now the group gets together, everybody. There's 10 of them together. It's now nighttime, and they all kind of laugh it off. Almost like they're all being really over paranoid. So they all settled in, and after a few minutes, reliving the initial encounter in April, they started talking about other things. It was a few hours later. It was dark now. They stoked a very nice sized fire outside, and they all continued to socialize and talk amongst themselves. Then this guy Bradley tells me, Rob, man, what happens next was the most terrifying experience that all 10 of these folks ever had in their life. He goes on to tell me that they were having a great time. They had a few drinks. At this point, Rob, quite frankly, this turned into a pretty cool, nice party. They were not paying any attention to their surroundings when all of a sudden, Bradley's wife, Susan, almost looking like she's in shock, pointed just in front of them to like the northern side of the property. So as Susan's pointing, the entire group looks at to what she was pointing at. What is she seeing? Rob, standing on all fours, were 6 wolf-like creatures. 6 wolf-like creatures. He goes on to say, Rob, I kid you not, as he explains to me, these things had to be at least 5 feet high from their feet to the top of their backs. They had to have a width of at least 3 feet easily from shoulder to shoulder. He says, Rob, the thing that most scary about these creatures is that they had freakish mongoloid wolf-like type heads. The heads were so big that they were disproportionate to their already huge bodies. Yeah, Dragon Paw, one is too many. I agree. This pack of these creatures, these wolves, whatever you want to call them, they just stared in at this group of 10. He also goes on to tell me what another crazy description is, that they had oversized egg-shaped bright blue eyes. And then, as all 6 wolves standing on all fours, they sat back on their hindquarters and sat down, stared in, gazing in at this group of people. Stared. Seems like they stared at us for hours, although I know it wasn't quite that long, Rob. It says like these wolf-like creatures or whatever. Again, Rob, they're not wolves. I don't know what they are. You can't even find this in any magazine, on the internet, anywhere. Odd looking. He says it seems like these creatures are trying to figure out who or what they were. All of the people associated here at this gathering, it felt like they were trying to get inside their minds. Rob, the 10 of us, we're silent. We're not even looking at each other. We're kind of in a hypnotic trance staring at these 6 beasts, wondering what their next step or their next move was going to be. Y'all sat silent and in absolute fear. Then the bright white light that they all experienced back in April shined directly over them. It came down over all of them, encompassed them. And just like the last time, they all were blinded at this intense bright light. Bradley goes on to say, if this was not enough, they all woke up the very next morning to the sunrise, almost like they all were passed out. So let's go walk this through a little bit. It's nighttime. They all get together. They don't know why they were brought together, you guys. They all had the little whisper inside their mind that prompted them to go down to Bradley's house, and they all convened there. And these 10 people, albeit being neighbors, they never communicated with each other. They never got together with each other. They didn't call each other on the phone. They didn't hang out on the weekends. They all kept to themselves. They were brought together in April when they had that experience from earlier in the story. 2 months go by. Collectively, they show up at this Bradley's house, and now they're hanging out and having a good time. It's nighttime, everybody. Then all of a sudden, these 6 creatures or beasts appear. Now, that same bright white light from in April cast down on their group. They wake up the next morning. Remember, it's nighttime. They have a fire going. They wake up in the morning to the sunrise in Bradley's backyard. The creatures were gone. Creatures weren't around. All 10 of them woke up. They looked around. They saw no apparent evidence of anything unusual. They even looked around for maybe tracks of these 6 beings, these 6 creatures. Nothing. Nothing suggested anything of the prior night's experience. Bradley then goes on to tell me that of the group, they all remember the night's event except for one other couple. But this couple does not remember anything. They don't even recall going over Bradley and Susan's house. They don't recall the other neighbors. They don't recall being there at all. It's almost this one other couple. He didn't give me the names of all the couples, of course. But everybody remembered except for these 2 other people. And they were explaining, and Brad is telling this couple, you were here with us, all 10 of us. This couple's mind was totally erased. Not to mention what they experienced, right? With these dogs, these creatures, these wolves, whatever you want to call them, the UFO, the light, this, that, and the other. They recalled nothing. Bradley goes on to tell me in the email that he's never told a single person about this account. The 10 of them keep this together under wraps amongst them. Even the couple that doesn't recall anything from that night. That couple does remember the April experience, but not the June experience. I should qualify that. He says, oddly enough, though, the couple that had no memory of this account within a matter of months put their home up for sale, moved, never to be seen again, never to contact the neighbors. He goes, Rob, this is the first time I've spoken on this. I thought I'd share it to you if you'd like to do it on your channel, which, of course, yes, I did. And I talked to this guy briefly on the phone not too a while ago. And said, yeah, I'm going to put it on. And he's going to follow up with me with any other activity. He says, as of today, you guys, what's today? Yeah, April 19th. I mean, I didn't talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he says nothing, no activity, hasn't seen a UFO, has not seen these dog-like creatures on his property, this, that, and the other. So I ask you guys, I'm going to ask you guys this. What do you think that was? Do you think that, we hear about these dogmen, we hear all about these accounts, all these experiences. And I believe in alien life, the dogman, the Bigfoot, all this stuff. Do you think that these were, it just, for me, is it a coincidence that there was UFO activity? The white light. We've all heard of all these alien abduction stories that involve these spacecraft and the lights with the that are cast down on the ground that supposedly takes people or animals, the animal mutilations. And is this another facet of Dogman? An alien type creature? Was this an alien? Was it not? Was it just coincidence? See, that's what I love doing this. It's fascinating and it's very mysterious to me. I don't have a theory put together on this myself. I'm thinking it's yet another mystery. I think that these were alien type of creatures that were put here. But my question, though, which intrigues me the most, is to why were they there? Why did they just appear, right, everybody? Why did they appear to this group of 10? Why did they, when they came up to Bradley's house, show themselves, sit down, and just kind of look at them? They did nothing nefarious. They didn't attack. They didn't do any telecommunication. Technically, maybe the whisper in everybody's mind to go to Brad's house, maybe that had something to do with it. Again, I don't know, speculating. But that's odd. You have to admit that's extremely odd. All 10 of them had this, right? but they did nothing. They observed them for whatever the reason. And then the bright light flashes down at nighttime, and they all wake up the next morning. I mean, they got knocked out. They were unconscious. They woke up the next morning in Brad's backyard to the rise of the sun. You know what I mean? I wanted to share that with you guys. I'd really love to hear your comments later on. I know you're all busy, but when you get a chance later, go back, leave a comment, because I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Because I'm trying to put this together, extrapolate it, and I'm kind of coming up empty. I have some ideas, but I thought that was a fascinating experience that this guy sent in to me. We've all heard similar things, yet not quite like this. You guys know how it goes. People see things every day, whether it's cryptid creatures, whether it's aliens, ghosts. You know, that's why y'all tune into these shows. So we talk about all of this stuff. So that's another, as they say, food for thought. Yeah, leave a comment. If you're new, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Yeah, give me a like, hit the like button. And don't forget, everybody, my show. I can't believe that the Late Show every Saturday night with Krista, Brandy, and Monica. Do you know that we've been on for 1 year every Saturday night? We have a cool show again for you. So you get a double dose of me if you guys are up, or if you come on over to watch. That's always a fun show. If I don't see you guys, thanks for subbing and liking and coming on in. I want to wish you all a happy Easter. And if I see you guys again tonight, a double happy Easter. So, yeah, I've got some things to do. It's kind of a shorter show. I usually do about 90 minutes. But, you know, I got to move on and take care of the family gig we got going on a little later. Appreciate y'all. And, yeah, again, if you're not doing nothing tonight, come check us out at 11 o'clock. So with that said, again, have a great weekend, great holiday. Be with friends, be with family. You take care. God bless. I'm BMR.
This is the future. Evolution.
Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks, with an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.